Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest, Dr. Mike Dow, and he's here to share with us his new book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Think, Act, and Be Happy. How to use Chicken Soup for the Soul stories to train your brain to be your own therapist. Now, Dr. Mike is a highly sought-after psychotherapist and New York Times bestselling author of The Brain Fog Fix, Healing the Broken Brain, and Diet Rehab. His books have been published in several different languages and are bestsellers in Europe and Asia. He has hosted several hit TV series on E!, TLC, VH1, and Investigation Discovery. Dr. Mike is known as a go-to expert in relationships, brain health, addiction, and mental illness. He's also on Hay House Radio, and he has a weekly show called The Dr. Mike Show. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Mike Dow.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. And my goodness, this is such a profound book. I mean, I can see why it's flying off the shelves and people are wanting their own copy.
I think all of us could use a little more happiness in our lives, and I think this book is really practical. So I'm so glad. That's why we wrote the book, is to really help improve people's lives. So.
Well, and it's right at the perfect time. I mean, people are thinking of holiday gifts. This is the perfect time to get this type of book for someone you love or someone you know, especially because it talks about a big thing that I'm very interested in, and it's the whole train your brain. Because a lot of people think that when we're kind of born with our brain a certain way, we're stuck with it, and then that's it. But I love how you have these practices in here that say otherwise.
I think that's one of the big takeaways, Marianne, is that you can train your brain every single day with really practical, easy steps, which is what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about, and that's sort of what this book is based around, these exercises. So, it's not making a huge life change. I mean, that'll obviously change your brain too. But what I love is that people realize that, it's actually not that hard to train and change my brain. If I just start with the thoughts, maybe baby step by baby step at a time, changing my everyday actions, and soon enough they cultivate that state of happiness, joy, and peace.
Well, and so it leads me to kind of wonder, what started you on this path, not only to become the highly successful doctor that you are, but also to kind of be interested in why our brain works the way it does?
Well, personally, I got started on this path because, I saw how my brother trained his brain. He suffered a massive stroke when he was 10 years old because of a rare brain disease. So he had to learn how to talk again, walk again. He still deals with some paralysis in his right arm, but, he did things the doctors told him he would never be able to do. So I think that's sort of my firsthand experience of realizing that, and obviously a stroke is a really extreme example, but really we are all training our brains every single day. So, that's sort of where my own personal inspiration for all of my work started. And, and then, of course, I dove into the science and realized that there are so many incredible everyday ways, for little things like I just want to be a little bit more optimistic or a little more grateful, that, sort of the same philosophy applies, that, it's just sort of my brother learned how to speak again, one syllable and then one word and then one sentence at a time. And by the same token, science really proves that if you want to create a life filled with love, or find a new significant other after one has passed, or just cultivating more gratitude, that it's the same thing. It's one moment, one choice, and one day at a time.
How inspiring that people not only hear your story and your personal journey, and I have to share with our listeners, if you haven't been to Dr. Mike Dow's website, please go there. You're going to see an episode of The Doctors that was just, it's heart-touching, and it's something we all should be made aware of. But to use your personal experience as your driving force also to do the work that you do, I really applaud you.
Well, it's I have to thank all of the people I've ever treated because they really honor me and trust me with their journey, and it's the most rewarding work. So I am really the luckiest man in the world when it comes to what I get to do every day. And what's also cool is that all of the tips and sort of exercises that I've developed, I was thinking of the thousands of people that I've treated as I was creating them. Just sort of thinking, okay, what worked for those 10 people that I treated who had this sort of issue. And in fact, when we were deciding what to put in the book, Amy and I, Amy's the editor-in-chief of Chicken Soup for the Soul, we had a conversation, and we were thinking about what are the 24 most common issues I see in my practice, and that's sort of how we came up with the structure of the book and the table of contents and what we were going to discuss in this book.
Well, I really like how it's set up because you have a person's story that they've submitted. Then you have also you've added some insights as well, and then there's some actionable work for them to do right after that.
Yeah, and I kind of joke that it's a combination, this book, and of course you can use it as a complement to therapy, but really, if you read a chapter, I sort of joke that it's sort of, in 15 minutes, it's a combination of group therapy and individual therapy because, what happens when you're in a support group or group therapy, you have that Me Too moment, you have that aha moment of, oh my gosh, that person is in my shoes, or I feel that way. So when you read the story that somebody else has written who is in a similar circumstance or going through what you're going through, you have that moment, which is sort of, in some ways like sitting in a support group or group therapy. And then it's sort of like you're in my office because I'm actually talking to you, giving you the same tips and tricks that I would give a patient in my office. So it's, you sort of get that combination approach. And you take the Me Too moment and with the CBT-based tips and with the workbook, journals, and exercises and meditations, you're really taking that inspirational story and applying it in a really deep way to your own life and to your own brain.
I thought this stories and how it was set up was fabulous. How did you end up working? Because we've had Amy on the show before. She's fabulous. We love her. And Amy Newmark is just an amazing person. How did you get working with Chicken Soup for the Soul? Did they see you and say, gosh, we got to start working with this guy?
This, the funny story is that this all came out of a lunch that Amy and I had. And, Amy had been on, we had worked together in media. We had a little something like this, just like you and I are meeting. And, we didn't know what, but she was in Los Angeles, so we had a lunch. And she was talking to me about what I did in my office. And, we sort of had this aha moment, which was that people in all of her, the thousands and thousands of Chicken Soup for the Soul stories that she's ever read and come across, she said, oh my gosh, when you talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, I realized that so many people that have stories in our books are actually using cognitive behavioral therapy instinctually on themselves, even if they don't call it that. And so we thought it would be so cool to actually have a book that combines the stories. And, there's this great story of this woman who was agoraphobic and afraid of planes and had panic attacks. And, baby step by baby step at a time, she knew she had to conquer all those fears, and she absolutely did. And, so she was actually sort of, in some ways, her own therapist. And but then, of course, wouldn't it be cool if I could actually then talk to you and help you to break whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in your life into those same baby steps. Even if you're not agoraphobic, even if you just want to build a business that you love, or get back on the career horse, or get back on the love horse, or whatever that horse is that you're trying to get back on, or lose 150 pounds or lose 5 pounds. It's just so cool that people can apply it with the format of this book.
Okay, so since you brought that up, I've got a whole list of questions. We'll never reach all of them, but there is a story in there that talks about overcoming obesity. And so you mentioned that this can be used for, maybe emotional eaters or people who are looking for lasting weight loss.
Yeah, I really think that changing your mindset is the most powerful tool, no matter what the health goal or the psychological goal is, physical or mental health. So in this story, there's a woman who had to lose 150 pounds, and what she did is she set a SMART goal. So a SMART goal is a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-sensitive goal. That's how I would frame it. She actually was doing it in her own mind, and it was sort of, instead of saying, oh my gosh, I have to lose 150 pounds, that seems daunting, that seems overwhelming. But a SMART goal would be, I'm going to lose at least 2 pounds a month for the next 12 months. And you can understand how, sort of reframing and changing your mindset in that way can really help people to achieve all sorts of things. And instead of feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, you feel proud of yourself, you feel optimistic, you feel more joy in your everyday. Instead of feeling down on yourself, you become your own greatest cheerleader. So it's just little cool reframes like that this book is chock full of.
I know there's so many great stories within this book, people sharing their personal account. And I'm not asking you to pick a favorite one, because that would pretty much be, I think, impossible in many ways. But why don't you share with one that really stands out for you?
There was a story that brought me to tears. And, by the way, I went through probably a few dozen Kleenex reading through all the stories when we were selecting them. And I think the most inspirational ones you'll find in this book. There is this story about two people dealing with paralysis, living their lives, and this is the example of what your mindset shift can do. I've seen people in my office who come to me and they're in their 40s and they say, "Oh, it's too late for me. I'll never find love." But that's a mindset shift, isn't it? That's what you're telling yourself about yourself. So, these two people, they are living their lives in wheelchairs. And, if you're living your life in a wheelchair, obviously it's a little bit harder to do things like, run a marathon or compete in, sort of physical-based activities. But both of these people did. And they actually met and fell in love at a wheelchair race. And then they got married. And then they wanted to start a family. And the doctor said, well, we should actually use a surrogate because of, some of the issues around, the physical issues. And what a miracle, a family member, a sister stepped in and said, I'll carry your child, but it didn't work out. So then this wife, with her limitations and with, obviously paralysis and mobility, the doctor said, well, I don't know. It's probably, sort of not going to work, or it may be complicated. She carried her own child and gave birth without any complications. And isn't it so powerful that, these two people, this happy couple, didn't allow something like, paralysis get in their way of finding love, of having the family of their dreams. And there were a lot of people along the way who said, even their doctor, well, this is going to be really hard, and I don't know. Or I'm sure there was, even in their own heads, oh gosh, should I really compete in a race in a wheelchair? And the answer was yes. And I love that story because it shows that it's not so much about your circumstances of your life. So obviously not everyone is dealing with paralysis, but how many of us have had something in our lives where it was our belief that we could do it that was the most important factor of if we could achieve that goal or not. So, that one just really struck me.
That is such a beautiful one. I love that one too. My goodness, how heart-touching. And I love that they just wouldn't take no for an answer. I've had friends that have had surgeries that the doctors are like, you're never going to walk again. And my friend was, she pretty much said, watch me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take these stories and you build upon them. Oh my goodness! And what's so fabulous is that you have workable information, so people can apply it to their own life, regardless where their journey is. Because you talk about paralysis. I mean, yeah, we might have that in other areas of our lives, like not being able to move in business or relationships or whatever the case is.
One of the 7 pitfall thought patterns in this book, which is sort of the cognitive piece of cognitive behavioral therapy, is changing how you think. One of the 7 is paralysis analysis. So it's maybe you're not physically paralyzed, but your mind paralyzes you because you ruminate and you get caught in these negative downward spirals of thought patterns that prevents you from taking meaningful action. So whether you're literally stuck in your life with, a business or something that you're trying to start, or maybe it's just something, I think for all of us, it begins in our mind, and we have to figure out, how we change those negative thought patterns. And the first step is awareness. So, we sort of start the book by saying, okay, here are the 7 pitfall thought patterns you need to be aware of, because these are linked to depression, anxiety, and they're I call them happiness blockers. So when you notice that thought pattern, just first pay attention, and then a lot of the tools in the book will help you to sort of turn them off so that you can get rid of those happiness blockers and think in more positive and optimistic ways.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up depression, because that seems, my goodness, we're going through like different crises as a society right now, and that's one of them. People, it seems, are more depressed than ever. And I really liked how you approached that whole story and dealt with that. It's not so much dealt with it, but offered insights and advice.
I think, I may be the doctor and the expert, but I think in so many ways people will find that the stories are sort of the greatest teachers of all. I may be, I may have a doctorate, I may be an expert, I may practice, I have a private practice, and I may, sort of be the expert in some ways. But, I always say to my patients, you are the true expert of you, and you are actually the expert of your own life. Not me, I sort of just guide people. So I think people will have that experience when they read these stories and realize that sometimes it's that really inspirational moment of connection that allows people to, take ownership and become the doctor of their own brains and of their own lives, which is what I hope people will do when they read this book.
Well, and I so appreciate you said that, because you're kind of helping people to help themselves. Because as a single doctor looking to make the type of change you're looking to make in the world, your book is helping a lot of people, because there's only so much physically you can do.
Yeah, I think so. Instead of, 1 person an hour, I'm hoping that thousands and thousands of people will take these, the natural methods of cognitive behavioral therapy and really train their own brain. I think we can actually make the world a better place if we all trained our brains to be a little bit kinder to ourselves, a little more optimistic. And I think the ripple effect of that could actually end up, changing millions of people because of the way that gratitude, kindness, happiness is contagious in the way that it affects others.
Well, and you show in the book that it's something that definitely can be developed, because a lot of times people, I don't know about you, but I hear people sometimes saying, well, I have nothing to be grateful for, or, they get in these kind of ruts of negative thinking when that all can be changed.
It really can, and, it's probably easier than you think. We don't do it all at once. We do it one baby step by baby step at a time. And, it's interesting the way that thoughts and actions and feelings, it sort of forms a triad. So if you're noticing negative thoughts, you can start by becoming aware. You can talk back to your thoughts, or you can also just start by changing what you do baby step by baby step at a time every single day. And because, thoughts, feelings, and actions are sort of also interconnected, it's like pulling on a knot. It doesn't really matter where you pull. You just have to start pulling somewhere to untie that knot, and then it all sort of unravels. And then, by changing your actions, you can change how positive your thoughts are. They'll become more positive, which, of course, leads to more happiness.
Yeah. and people can have happier lives. What if, and there is a story in the book, what if someone has something where most people think, I don't think I can ever overcome this. I was a victim of abuse. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for them?
Absolutely. And, one of the others of the 7 pitfall thought patterns we talk about is permanence. And permanence in the brain makes it feel like the negative, painful state that you are in today will never go away. But remember that all of those 7 pitfall thought patterns, including permanence, is an illusion. So if you are somebody who is overcoming something horrific like physical or sexual abuse or the trauma of a car accident or war, there may be part of you that says, oh my gosh, I'm always going to feel this way. But that's an illusion. And we know that there are so many ways, and I can tell you I have treated thousands, at least hundreds of people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And you can absolutely change it. And the way you feel today, if it is negative, you will not always feel that way. And so, yes, the answer to your question is yes, there is a light at the end of that tunnel. And there is a silver, there is some great light there that's waiting for you. And there is hope.
I think people are going to feel really relieved to hear that, because if someone's been through some type of abuse and they are, feeling in a place where they're feeling like, gosh, I'm really not able to get through this, that it doesn't have to be that, as you were talking about, that permanent situation. It's something that they can move beyond.
I think if we all remember that, it's really going to help us not only with something that you're dealing with now, but a lot of this is prevention. It's sort of knowing what to do and how to think and how to train your brain so that when you do come across, when life hands you something tricky, you'll have all these tools, which is why, people have said, I sort of bought this book because I love, I really want help with, becoming more optimistic, or I'm going through a divorce. But then you read every single chapter and there's something to learn, even if it's not something you're dealing with now. I mean, I'm not a cancer survivor, but when I was reading the story about the cancer survivors, I learned something. I had some aha moments about optimism and gratitude and mindsets related to health. So I think people, when they read these chapters, even though we're talking about specific issues, the lessons are really universal.
I think we have time for one more of the stories, if you care to share with us, that kind of stood out for you. I mean, there's so many, and there's so many great examples, and they touch every section of our lives. I think our listeners would love to hear another one from you.
Oh gosh, there are so many that brought me to tears, and so many that touched me. But there's a really simple one. A really, really simple one, and it was about gratitude and mindset. And it was this couple who was down on their luck. A company went out of business, so the husband lost his job, and they lost their house, and they had to move into this, rundown house. And, so clearly this was sort of a rock bottom moment for this family. And the wife was just really the husband was trying to comfort her. He's saying things like, it's not that bad. And, she's saying, no, actually it is. Actually, it is that bad, And it was, sometimes it just takes the wonder and innocence of a child to sort of stop us in our tracks. And, so their daughter was out playing in the yard, and she was commenting on how, even though the wife, the mom was seeing this rickety fence, the daughter was just so happy that there was a fence, because that means that she could go out and play in the yard. And she was talking about the flowers and all of the beauty that she saw with her child's eyes. And it was that moment of seeing her daughter play outside and having her daughter be so grateful with this, the simple beauty of being outside and seeing those flowers. That was her aha moment to say, you know what? It's not that bad. In fact, it's pretty great. And you know what? We have a home, and there are flowers, and there is a yard, and we have a roof over our head. And it was that mindset shift of gratitude that helped this family. And of course, what's great is once you figure out what that mindset shift is for you to, in terms of being more grateful, then you can call more abundance in because you're already grateful for what you have. And then you feel better, you feel happier, and happier people tend to be more productive, and they tend to become go-getters in the world. So then, of course, you're going to just attract more abundance. And he did get a job. The husband got a job again, and they did what they had to do, and their life got better. But I think it started with that mindset shift and that aha moment that their daughter gave them.
Yeah, it's so fabulous, especially where we get our inspiration to make those shifts in our lives. It doesn't. It could be as simple as a child saying something, or, in the case of Think, Act, and Be Happy, is reading a book and seeing where it applies to your own life and how you can make those adjustments. Yeah,
I know I have made some shifts in my own life and the mindset, especially around gratitude and paying attention to what I do have. And, just to share a personal story with you in my own life of how I had to take my own advice. It reminds me of something that we went through just these past few months. We bought a fixer-upper, and we thought that we could handle it, and then we soon realized that we are not we're not fixer-upper people. And for a couple days, I fell prey to paralysis analysis. I was sort of ruminating and oh God, we made the wrong decision. What have we done? And I felt like I couldn't do anything, and I wasn't going to be able to, to do all the things that needed to be done. And oh gosh, how do you fix, a roof? And how do you, redo a bathroom? Oh my gosh, I guess I'm not. I thought I was going to be good at this, but I'm not. And I got caught in my own negative thoughts. And then I had to remind myself of some of the strategies in this book, which is, when you get caught in paralysis analysis, one of the antidotes is to just wake up every day and fill it with activities that are productive and pleasurable. So every day I said, okay, this may feel hard, but, I think I could call that, 3 roofing companies, or I could call 2 plumbers, or I could call get an estimate from this flooring person. And all of a sudden, the house was done, and at first it felt really daunting because of, sort of the, oh gosh, did we bite off more than we could chew? But the house is done and we did it. So, I think we all have to take our own advice sometimes.
Hey, that's a very real story that I think a lot of people go through, because you can take those classes at Home Depot and just realize, ooh, this is a little bit more than what I can do here,
Oh yeah, and now when I watch HGTV, or when people say, oh, that's easy, just knock off this wall and do this and do that, and then and of course in a 30-minute show it just magically happens, and you don't realize just the blood, sweat, and tears that go into everything. But I think that's such a metaphor for all of the struggles that we have in our own lives. No matter what you're facing, action is one of the most potent antidotes. And, for me, my actions changed my negative thoughts to more positive thoughts. In other parts of the book, some of the strategies, we start by changing the thoughts, and then when you start with the thoughts, then the actions change. So again, it doesn't matter where you start that change in cognitive behavioral therapy, because everything is training your brain to get into that feedback loop of gratitude and joy and contentment. Happy. I don't know if I like the word. Happiness is such an interesting word because it has so many meanings. So I wish I could have called the book Think, Act, and Be Joyful, Peaceful, Content, optimistic, and but we only had so many words for the title. So I guess happy is the best way to sum it up.
Well, and and at some point or another, people do. They probably attribute joy, contentment, all that to some kind of form of happiness. So, I think it works out, because most people, you look at it and they're like, they want to have more happiness in their life. They want to be fulfilled. They want to feel like life matters. And Think, Act, and Be Happy from Chicken Soup of the Soul, and you, Dr. Mike Dow, did a fabulous job.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, and so where can our listeners connect with you and see your videos and learn more about your community?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, drmikedow.com, drmikedow.com. where you can even download one of the stories that's in this book, which is kind of cool. And I'm on all social media platforms at Dr. Mike Dow.
Well, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Mike. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book in the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, Think, Act, and Be Happy. This book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course, all indie bookstores. If you'd like to connect with Dr. Mike, you can at his website, drmikedow.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.